My point with this series of these videos about the kingdom and the tabernacle and the Torah is all to show the model. If you want to see the kingdom, look at the congregation of Israel in the wilderness. They had a law for the kingdom, and they had the king's palace, so to speak, in the tabernacle. And there was a way to approach. You had to offer sacrifice, and they had to do washing. They had to read, pray, and obey, but symbolized by the bread, the incense, and the menorah. And then the veil represented the very presence of Yahweh, and Yeshua being the veils. Later you read, like you read in Hebrews, Yeshua being the veils, representing his first coming and his second coming. First coming, he gave us access to the holy place. Next time we will have access to the Holy of Holies. We will actually be in the presence of Yahweh. Those that are pure in heart will, according to the Beatitudes. And that's the whole point. There was a law, there was a palace, so to speak, and it represents the kingdom. They all had their purpose. I don't think it's by accident that they had 3 tribes on each side. What do we have with our joints? We have 3 sections. We have the upper arm, the forearm, and the hand. 3 sections to our bodies. Same with our legs. We have the thigh, and then we have a joint there, and we have and you see that described in some of Paul's writings, that about being part of the body, that just because we're not a hand doesn't mean we're any less part of the body, or if we're a hand or we're a foot or whatever we are in the body of Messiah, that's our job, that's what we do, and we do it with joy. And we live according to his ways. You know, people don't bother that want to say the law was done away with, don't bother to read any of this. Like, for instance, Deuteronomy 25, 13. You shall not have in your bag differing weights, a large and a small. You shall not have in your house differing measures, a large and a small. You shall have a full and just weight. You shall have a full and just measure, that your days may be prolonged in the land, which, it's basically telling you you're not to cheat people. What's wrong with that? The law on divorce, Deuteronomy 24, is all about, what it's to show you why Messiah had to come, because they defiled themselves and went out with Israel went out with other people. That's why Yahweh gave them a certificate of divorce, as you read in Jeremiah. And you read, if you want a real quick summary, or if you want to understand what the kingdom is going to look like, read Deuteronomy. It's got the 10 Commandments, it's got the food, it's got the who's excluded from the assembly and why. That you're not to tolerate people that want to say, let's go serve other gods. You're not to allow spiritism, all the spiritism and consulting mediums and all that stuff, because that's one of the ways Satan influences people, is through spirits, through their spirit guides and all this kind of stuff. Here's Deuteronomy 22, verse 1. You shall not see your countryman's ox or his sheep straying away and pay no attention to them. You shall certainly bring them back to your countryman. If your countryman is not near, or if you do not know him, then you shall bring it home to your house, and it shall remain with you until your countryman looks for it. Then you shall restore it to him. You know, and there's stuff that talks about how we are to deal with the widows and the orphans. And Paul talks about the undefiled religion as to take care of the widows and the orphans, and that's our job as believers, as a congregation, is to take care of those people. The not harming the edges of your field is that concept. That was how Ruth and Boaz met each other, is that Ruth was gleaning in Boaz's field. You know, make no covenant with them or their gods. It tells you what you should have and shouldn't have when it comes to going to war. That if you're fearful, or if you've been married less than a year and stuff like that, you don't go to war. And who can and can't go to war? Deuteronomy 20. Deuteronomy 19, verse 14, it says, do not move your neighbor's boundary mark, which the ancestors have set in your inheritance, which you will inherit the land that the Lord your God gives you. On the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses, a matter shall be confirmed. And taking a dispute before the priest. Just so many things. Cities of refuge, to where if you didn't intentionally kill someone, that it was an accident, then you had a city of refuge to go to. You know, there's stuff about administration of justice. The king to write a copy of the law. That's Deuteronomy 17. I'm just trying to cover some of the highlights. Just to give you a feel for this whole thing. I mean, I expect that you would read all this stuff yourself, because there's no pastor around. There's no person on this earth that could teach you everything. You have to be invested in this stuff yourself. You know, how you are to treat the alien among you. Deuteronomy 16 talks about the feast, the 3 times you're supposed to show up to Jerusalem. The men were supposed to show up to Jerusalem. The sabbatical years, Deuteronomy 15. Clean and unclean, Deuteronomy 14. You know, you're not supposed to follow other gods. Anyone that says, let's follow other gods, you're not supposed to listen to them. Or false prophets and different things. That you do not inquire after their gods, saying, how do these nations serve their gods? That I also may do likewise. You shall not behave thus toward the Lord your God, Yahveh your Elohim. That's Deuteronomy 12, verse 30 and 31. the laws of the sanctuary. All this stuff has purpose. Keep Deuteronomy 11, verse 22. For if you are careless to keep if you are careful to keep all the commandments which I am commanding you to do, to love the Lord your God, to walk in all his ways and hold fast to him, then the Lord will put all these nations from before you, and you will dispossess the nations greater and mightier than you. I mean, it goes on and on about different things, and it's all about circumcision of the heart. It talks about Messiah coming. Deuteronomy 18:18, I believe it is. Let's see. Yeah, 18:18 says, I will raise up a prophet from among their countrymen like you, and will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak to them all I command him. I mean, all these things, this is all part of the law of the kingdom. The Torah, the law of the kingdom. This wasn't done away with. You know, it's about treating others fairly. It's about not giving false witnesses. It's about how we live. It's about lifestyle. You know, it's not about being legalistic. It's about doing things about staying humble. It's about realizing that this is important. What does the Shema say? Here, Deuteronomy 6, starting in verse 4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. These words which I am commanding you today shall be on your heart. You shall, what is circumcision of the heart? You know, you shall teach them diligently to your sons, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand. And they shall be in the frontals on your forehead, your frontal lobe. And this is a deliverance from the world. The Ten Commandments are in Deuteronomy 5. All this stuff exists for a reason. How you treat people. You know, this is all for our good, oh, well, you have to keep this. No, you get to keep this. You get to shine. You get to be the kingdom. And that's what it's all about, is being the kingdom, showing people the kingdom by our lifestyles. That's the whole point of all this stuff. That's what keeping Torah is all about, is to show people love and compassion and show them Yahveh through our conduct, confessing Him before men by our conduct. Shalom, shalom.